So we have integrated this property detail page to our web API in our previous video. In this video, we are going to integrate add property component to the web API. Let me give you an overview of what we are going to implement in this video. At present, these radio buttons are populated from static data, but this is something that should come from the database. So first of all, we will populate these property types and furnishing types from the database. We already have seeded the required data into these two master table, and in the property table, we need to store the ID of these master tables. So it is important to populate these buttons from the database so that we can get the ID of each type that we need to store into the property table. Next, we will fix the issue that has been pending for a long time in this tutorial. We are using ngModel for two-way data binding to populate this property card in real time. But if you open the console, you would be getting this warning. As per this warning, ngModel and form control cannot be used together with the reactive form, and it is deprecated and will be removed in the future version. But fortunately, they have not even removed it from the Angular 12 as well. They keep showing this warning, but we are not sure in which version they will remove it suddenly. So we are going to fix it in this video. Also at present, when we are selecting the city from the dropdown, we are populating this city ID here. So we will see how to display the city name here instead of showing ID. I will also remove this age of property field from here because this is something we will calculate on the basis of establishment date of property. And in this video, we are not going to save the data of property into the database. First of all, we will fix all of these issues and make sure we have all the required data on this form that we can directly push into the property table without any changes. In our next video, we will work on the saving data into the database. And in the last video, I have given you the exercise to make this label dynamic and populate the possession date in place if property is not ready to move. Hope you already have done that, and if not, I have added another video on implementing the same. I have provided the link to that video below in the description. So without further ado, let's go ahead and implement the functionality that we have discussed. So first of all, we are going to populate these buttons from the data that we have already seeded in the database in our previous lessons. We have not yet added any controller endpoint to access these masters. So we need to add the controller for the property types and furnishing type as well here. And I am not going to show you step-by-step information to add these endpoints because there is nothing new that we have not done yet in our tutorial. I will add the code behind the scene and will show you the final code so that it can save your time. Otherwise, this video will become so lengthy and so much boring as well. So let's implement the same. So you already know we are following repository pattern, and as per our architecture, we first need to add an interface for a property type repository. So we have defined this interface and added the signature of the method to get property type. Next, we need to add a signature of iUnit of work to access the repository that will implement this iProperty repository interface. So our interface have the method signatures. Let's implement these interfaces. Add the property type repository to fetch the data from the database. It should implement iProperty type repository. So this is the final code of the repository. We are injecting the data context in the constructor and using the same here to fetch the property types from the database and returning the data as list here. These are the namespaces required in this repository. So this method is ready to use in our controller. And we do not directly use the repository in our controller. Instead, we can access the repository using a unit of work. So initialize this property here in a method, just like we have done for the other repositories. Now we can add the controller to create the public interface to our API. Let's name it a property type controller. And as usual, we need to inherit this from base controller. So this is the final code of our controller. These are the namespaces we need to import. Here in constructor, as usual, we are injecting iUnitOfWork and iMapper class. Local fields are initialized here for these two variables, and we have set it here in the constructor. And finally, we have added this getPropertyType method that we are exposing as HTTP GET endpoint. Here we are using DTO, but this time we have not created a DTO specific to property type. Instead, we have added a generic type of interface with the name key value pair DTO. The benefit of defining this key value pair DTO is that we can use this DTO to map multiple different domain objects where we just need to return the key and value from the database. In that way, we can avoid creating so many different DTOs for such a simple mapping. So if we look at the DTO, we have just added ID and name property here. As you would already be aware that to use AutoMapper in the controller, we need to create a map for the origin and destination property here in the AutoMapper profile. So we have created this map here. So we are ready to test this endpoint. And the URL of this API will look like this: API/property-type/list. Save it and let's test this API endpoint using Postman. Let's make a copy of this method and name it getPropertyTypes and try to access the same. Yup, we got it. So similarly like this, we can add a new endpoint to get the list of furnishing types as well. I'm not going to show you the steps we need to follow because there is nothing new here, and you can just follow the same process that we just have followed to create this property type endpoint. I have added the furnishing type endpoint behind the scene and committed the code on GitHub up to this point. If you are getting some problem in adding the furnishing type endpoint, you can go to this GitHub URL, press this commit link and search the commit name API Endpoint for property type and furnishing type. Click on this button to get the code committed up to this point. From here, you can download my code and see what I have done for this implementation. Also, by clicking this link, you can see what changes I have made in this commit. So now we have both the API endpoints to get property types and furnishing types. Let's update our Angular application to populate these buttons using the data that we will receive from our newly created endpoint. So similar to WebAPI DTO, let's add a model to define key value pair data type. We can add it as interface, name it key value pair, and add two properties here: ID as number and name as string. We can use this model at multiple places to bind the types needed for radio buttons and drop-down list, where we only need key and value from the database. Let's go to the housing service and add the two methods here to get property type and furnishing type. Copy this and make the required changes to save a little bit of time. Let's name it getPropertyTypes, and type should be an array of key value pair. Change it here as well. And finally, call the API endpoint associated to get the property type list. Since I forgot to add a square bracket here, which is needed to define an array, let's copy this and add another method to get furnishing types from our API. Make the required changes. Now we can use these two methods in our add property component. And here at present, we are providing some static data to property types and furnishing types. Let's remove this hard-coded value and define both of these two variables as an array of key value pairs. and populate the data into these variables on ngOnInit method of our component that is called at the time of initializing a component. Let's fetch the data from our API using housing service and call the newly added method to get property types. Call the subscribe method and get the API response in data. And using arrow function, set furnishing types equals the data we have received from our API. Similarly, like this, fetch the data of furnishing type as well. Seems I have mistakenly populated the data into furnishing types. Change it to property types. So we have received data from our API into these two variables. Previously, we were simply using an array of strings into these variables. But now we are getting the array of JSON object into this. So we need to update our HTML template as well so that we can correctly display the value from our API response. Let's scroll down to the tag where we are creating the radio buttons for property type. Here we go. And here, instead of simply using p type, now we need to use ptype.name to display the name of property type. And here, as we need to store the ID of property type in the database, we need to use ptype.id. Same thing we will have to do for the furnishing type as well. Save it and let's see how we get it on the add property page. Yup, I can confirm we are getting this from the database because I had added a villa as well in the property type in the database, and that is appearing here. And if I delete this new entry from the property table, and refresh the page, it has been removed from here. Let's try to rename this furnishing type as well. Let's rename it from fully to full. Refresh the page. Yup, this has been changed. So now these two radio buttons are configurable. We are able to add new items and we can rename the same as per our need. So we have solved one problem but introduced another problem on this page. Look at the property card. We are getting the ID of selected property type and furnishing type here. For the city as well, we are getting ID and not the text. Let's see how to solve this problem. So this property card is bound with the property view object. And if we look at the property type, here we are using two-way data binding to set the different properties of property view. If we use two-way data binding using ngModel like this, it passes the value of associated control to the property of component class. We have no control to pass the different values here. It will automatically pick the value of control by default, and here in this control it will pick the value of BTN radio property. So to fix the issue, we have to remove this two-way data binding, and we need to set property type here on click event. Now we have full control over what we need to pass here, and we can set it to property type.name. So on clicking each button, we are now setting the property type to the name that we are displaying in the caption of that button. Let's quickly do the same for furnishing type as well. Save it and let's test it. Yup, now we are getting the name in the property card on clicking these buttons. Next, we need to fix this drop-down issue. We are getting ID here. It is a little tricky. Let's see how to get this fixed with the drop-down. So scroll down to the city control. Here as well, we are using ngModel with two-way data binding. Let's remove the same. And we need to define a template variable that we can use to access the different properties of dropdown. And on change event, that will fire when the user will select the different options in the dropdown. we would like to set the city property of the property view object. And here we can access a drop-down object using this template variable. If you already have worked with drop-down in JavaScript, you would already know how to get the text of selected options from drop-down. Let me show you how we can do that. As the current DOM is drop-down, we can use options, and in square bracket we can pass the selected index of that options. Now we have the reference of the selected item of drop-down. We can access the text of selected item using text property. That's it. Save it and check if it works. Yup, now we are getting the text of selected option. So we have already removed ngModel from 3 controls from our HTML template, but there are other controls where we are still using ngModel. That is why this warning is still appearing. So let's remove ngModel from all the places from this template to remove this warning. Let's search for ngModel, and we are using ngModel for BHK radio button. We already have seen how to use click event as an alternative to pass the value to our component. So remove it and use the click event here to set the BHK property. Search for the next ngModel. This is an input box. Remove this ngModel and also remove this two-way data binding. Declare a template variable to get the access of this DOM element, and use the key up event for the input box, and set the property view.name equals this template variable name dot value. Next we are using ngModel for price. Remove it, and as it is also the input box, we need to follow the same approach. Declare a template variable, and on key up event set the value of price equal price.value. Next we are using ngModel on built area. I think this is the last one. Remove it. This is also the input box. Follow the same approach. Declare template variable, and on key up set the value of built area equals built area.value. So we are done. Save it and see if that warning is disappeared. Yup, we are not seeing any warning here. So we are now good with the future migration. Let's try to see all the properties if all are correctly reflecting in our property card. Yes, it's appearing correctly. This one also. And yep, all the values are correctly being populated in real time on the property card. Next, we need to remove this age of property. And here as well, we should be able to see ready to move or possession date if property is not ready to move. So scroll down to the ready to move control. Yup, here it is. And just below to this controller, we are conditionally showing possession date or age of property on the base of ready to move value. Let's remove this age of property and remove this condition from the possession date. And I think it would be good to display different labels if the property is ready to move or not. Let's add two different labels, one establishment date and another one is possession date. And display this label if property is ready to move. And display possession date if property is not ready to move. Here on a click event, we need to set the ready to move property of the property view object. Set it to 1 if the property is ready to move, and set it to 0 if the property is not ready to move. Save it and test. So our label is changing as per the radio button selection, And also the property card is displaying ready to move here, and possession date if the property is not ready to move. Next, we need to pass this possession date in our property view object so that we can display the selected date here in our property card. So it is a type of input. So we need to define template variable to access this element. We had used the key up event previously with the input box, but here we are using third party control, and it provides a BS value change event that will be fired when we select the different date from the calendar. So we can use this event to set the possession date and set it to possession dot value. Let's also change the date format to display in month DDYYY format. Save it and test. Yup, now we are getting the possession date here on the property card if property is not ready to move. So we have all the required values that we need to push in the property table in our database. In our next video, we will work on saving the property in the database that will automatically appear here on the list page. If you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please subscribe the same and press the bell icon so that you can get the instant alert as soon as we release a new video. So see you in the next video. Stay safe. Bye bye.